Okay, relatively hot off the press. Only, well, as I record this, about a week out. Spider-Man, No Way Home. The latest in the Marvel MCU, as they say on the tippity types, the Marvel Cinematic Universe Spider-Man series. This is the third in the current series of Spider-Man films with the current Spider-Man that we have, Tom Holland. And you've probably already seen it. You probably already know all the spoilers. That's the thing about this movie and about movies in general these days. Nobody can keep their mouth shut. Like, to see a film and not have major plot points revealed is like dodging bullets in the Matrix. It's like you can't go anywhere and not find out something. So Spider-Man No Way Home picks up after the events of the previous two Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, being that they're a series and all. And like all of these Avengers films, they all interconnect now. So the downside of a lot of these Marvel movies is you feel like you have to do homework to enjoy them. I was never a fan really of the Thor films until Ragnarok came out, but I was always felt like you had to see it because part of that storyline would work its way into the next Avengers movie and the next Marvel this and that. Anyway, I've always loved the Spider-Man character since I was a wee lad. One of the oldest possessions I have is a Spider-Man tote bag from probably like 1980 or something like that. And I used to buy the various, I wasn't like a Spider-Man comic devotee. I wasn't buying every issue, but I would often buy them. I really got into Marvel Tales back in the 80s because it was a way to read the earlier Spider-Man storylines, like the classic storylines, and that were long, off the racks at that point. So, and I used to love seeing Spidey super stories on the Electric Company as a kid. This week, Spider-Man says, wah. That was always really cool. So, a Spider-Man fan from way back. Loved the Raimi Spider-Man movies. Didn't really care for the Garfield Spider-Man movies. Not the fuzzy orange cat who likes lasagna, but the Andrew Garfield, the pre-Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. Didn't care for the first one because I really felt like that was trying to Dark Knightify Spider-Man. Liked the second one a lot better. Then the Hollands, I didn't really care for the first Spider-Man Homecoming. Really enjoyed Far From Home, and I loved Spider-Man No Way Home. So even if you've already seen it, I'm not going to be the guy that ruins the surprises in this movie. I was really bummed that the initial trailer set up a great premise. Basic premise is at the end of the previous Spider-Man film, Far From Home, he swings through Times Square and there's a J. Jonah Jameson, played by the same actor who played J. Jonah Jameson in the Tobey Maguire films, which was a nice touch. And he's basically revealing to the world through a video clip of the bad guy in Far From Home, Spider-Man's identity. And it ends with him going, what the f... So Spider-Man No Way Home begins, and I'm not going to tell you much more than this, it begins with Peter Parker going to Doctor Strange and saying, my life is a mess. Everybody knows I'm Spider-Man. It's messing up the lives of the people I know and love. Is there any way you could cast some kind of a spell? And this is International ASL forecasting a spell. Or help, I'm drowning and I only know the dog paddle. I'm not sure. Or I'm making spaghetti, whatever it is. He asked Doctor Strange to cast a spell that makes the world forget that he was Spider-Man. Things go wrong with that. Much like any movie where somebody fantasizes, if you could just change the world and it'll all be fine, it never quite works out that way. The world doesn't want to be changed. And things get really nuts. And that's about all I'm going to say about the plot of this movie. Is something I've loved about the introduction of the Doctor Strange character into the Marvel movie universe is that it has given them license to get weird. Just go into mind-bending visuals and like time travel and multi-dimensions and all kinds of insanity, which makes for a visual feast on the screen. This movie was very cool to look at, and it had mind-bending concepts, and it did things that for the majority of the audience I saw this with, see, I go to the movies a lot, and if you go to chain theaters and movies a lot, you tend to see the same trailers over and over. And oftentimes, I think I might have talked about this before, oftentimes that will turn me against a movie. Like certain films, I'll see the trailer so much, I'm like, I cannot wait for this movie to come out so that I don't not see that damn trailer anymore. The initial trailers for this movie gave you basically the premise I just did. The subsequent trailers started showing you some things that happen in the movie that should be, oh wow, my mind is blown. And I sort of, once that started happening, I sort of did the the Three Little Chimps thing to try to not know anything before I saw the movie. Social media is terrible about this. Aspects of the Ghostbusters movie were ruined far in advance because things leaked out. And now that I see even posters for this new Spider-Man movie show things that I know they're doing it because they want to get butts in seats. They want to show you everything that might make you want to see this. But for me, it's like I want the surprises to occur within the context of the story linearly and not be things I know before I'm going in. The audience I saw this was, I went to the Alamo Draft House, first showing, so it was like a 3 o'clock on a whatever weekday it was, pretty packed crowd, and people were going nuts. So apparently a lot of people have not seen the trailers of the social media. They just know it's a new Spider-Man movie, and maybe they saw some animated ad on a Facebook page or something, or wherever finer ads are consumed these days. And the kid next to me was going crazy over aspects that I kind of knew about. People reacted as though they were at a pro sports event. It was cheering, it was woohooing, it was gasping, exclaiming things. Normally I like a crowd to be quiet while I watch a movie, but when you're watching, if you can see a comedy with a crowd that laughs a lot, if you can see a horror movie with a crowd that screams, it just makes it better. And my opinion of this very well might be tainted by the fact that I saw it with such a good crowd that was just right for this film, but it made it more exciting and it made it more fun. So again, performances in this movie, it's a Marvel movie. I mean, it's more a ride than a deep philosophical cinematic voyage, although it has a message to it. That's a pretty damn good message to it, actually. This movie is about retribution in many, many ways. Retribution? No. Well, it is a little bit. It's redemption. I get confused with the big words that are more than 5 letters. It's about redemption. It's about care. It's about doing the right thing. And this movie, and this is the kind of thing that can be discussed maybe online or maybe elsewhere, not in something where I might be talking to somebody who hasn't seen this and wants to preserve going in as blind as possible, which is how I would suggest this. There is a much discussion to be had about the redemption, even in meta, as the kids like to say, even in ways that aren't part of the story. I will say, if you go to see this film, it probably will benefit you being familiar or having seen all of the previous Spider-Man movies, Tobey Maguire and onward. Threads weave through, shall we say. If you went to see this blind, like if you've never seen a Spider-Man movie and you went to see this, it would still be an exciting, funny, fun adventure film, but it would pack probably little to none of the punch that it has for anybody who has seen some of the previous movies. That's the thing with these Marvel movies. Like I say, they're homework. It's kind of like a soap opera, like a lot of TV has become now too. Gone are the days where every story sort of stands alone and you kind of know the characters, and if you don't, you get caught up to speed. All these Marvel movies kind of hinge upon you knowing things about the other Marvel movies, but it's absolutely the previous films that came in the series. So Tom Holland is fun. I always have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about the fact that so many of our classic, and this sounds like a jingoistic rah-rah stuff, but it's not. So many of our classic American comic book heroes are like all played by British people now, which is really weird. But Tom Holland is great as Peter Parker. He just seems like a nice kid. The film is like gloriously pro math and science. It is pro the smart kid, which seems like society has fallen way away from that, sadly. It's the 3 leads. You have Peter Parker, you have MJ, who's his girlfriend, and you have, I'm forgetting his friend's name. You all know, his friend, the lovable, goofy kid. But they're all like just nice, sweet, smart kids, and not people that you just want to see die in a car fire, which is nice. The effects are great, as always. This is a movie that I'm sure benefits from an IMAX viewing. I don't know if it was shot for IMAX, but the bigger the better. Watching this, like with any Marvel movie, the spectacle is such a large part of it. It's surprising that I'm learning this, but there is a 3D option for this. They still do that. Like 3D was the biggest thing. 3D historically has always been what studios do when they're afraid they're losing theatrical business to another form of media. So 3D was always the thing which was, oh, you can't get this at home. 3D kind of has waned again, as it always does. It's actually hung on longer this time than it ever has historically, but I keep forgetting 3D is an option. To me, 3D is best when the film is shot in 3D with the idea that you're going to get the 3D effect. So much of what we see is 3D that's applied after the fact in the virtual digital post-production realm to stuff that was never meant to be shot that way. And if you've heard my other reviews regarding 3D, I'm going to repeat a lot of this, but a lot of times if I'm watching a contemporary movie that wasn't shot for 3D that's put into 3D, you never quite get the effect because the editing is so fast, and the camera setups and the movement, you never get a sense. Your brain can never process the image and the depth and the, shall I say, wonder of 3D when it's moving along so fast. So once in a great while you might get the effect. And I always thought as a kid, discovering what 3D was when it was not in common use, that like the Star Wars movies and Superman and all the movies I loved and Raiders, how cool would that be in 3D? And the answer is certain shots are, but most of the time it all goes by so fast, your brain kind of compresses it anyway. So 3D is an option for Spider-Man No Way Home. IMAX is an option. I just saw it 2D on a pretty sizable screen. It was a total blast. I loved it. I can't wait to see where the series is going to go from here. Like with any actor who portrays an iconic character, I always hope that they're kind of in it to win it and they don't mind doing a lot of these movies. That was always the issue I had with the James Bond movies after a point, was that the actors didn't want to hang on. And I say that knowing Daniel Craig has technically done it for a long time, but actors always don't want to get typecast and they bust out, and it's every 2 movies you've got a different person. That's the problem with the Batman movies to me, is that it's like every 2 or 3 movies it's a different actor and they feel they need to start over again. I hope Tom Holland sticks with it for a while. I hope this cast sticks with it for a while. I love the interplay between him and other Marvel characters. There may be a Marvel character or two that's kind of a surprise that you see in this movie. It's just a total blast. It's very sweet. It has a great, strong moral foundation and surprises that I hope, from the bottom of my cold, cold heart, I hope that when you watch this, they are surprises for you. If you're watching this and somehow you want to see this movie, get to a theater as fast as you can. Put the blinders on. Don't look at the internet. Don't look at any media. Go back to the Stone Age. And really, I hope you have as much fun as I did with Spider-Man No Way Home.